Hello, everyone, and welcome to week 2 of Stepping into the World of Dementia. I am so excited about this tour. I am so excited about all the learning that is taking place, all the information that the caregivers are receiving. I am so excited. If this is your very first day attending the Stepping into the World Dementia tour, you are in for another treat. Today we have Dr. Brittany Lamb, who is emergency doctor, and she will be letting us know about 5 actionable steps that we can take as dementia caregivers in making medical decisions for our loved ones. So if you have a loved one who is suffering from dementia, you know a friend, a family member who has a loved one who's taking care of their loved one who's suffering from dementia, you need to send them a text, an email, a Facebook information, and let them know that they need to be a part of this session. And please, as I always say, share this information with others. And now I would like to introduce Dr. Brittany Lamb. Yeah, unmute your mic.
Hi,
Hi.
technical difficulties.
Oh, that's fine.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate you.
Thank you for joining us. And I'm going to turn it over to you.
Okay. Yeah, so I created a little slideshow for you all because I wanted to stay organized and make sure we get through these 5 steps. So let's go ahead and just jump in. I want you all to, if you have questions while I'm going through this, just pop them in the comment section and then we'll keep an eye on them. And at the very end, I'll probably address the questions unless somebody gets really confused or lost about what I'm saying. Okay. So hi, I'm Brittany Lamb. I'm an ER doctor. I'm still working full time. I work night shifts. I wanted to tell you why I'm here. And the main reason is that I see people out there struggling. I see caregivers like you all who are taking care of someone with dementia every single day at work. I'd say over half my patients are seniors, are people who are aging, and a good bit of those folks are people with dementia. And so I take care of them. But I'm also working with caregivers because you all are the people that are making medical decisions for them. And I find that people really struggle to do that because they don't have the education and the background information that they need to make really good, like confident decisions. There's no wrong or right decision, but you can feel good about the decision that you're making. You can do so in confidence if you just take a little bit of time to plan and learn ahead of the issues that happen. So that's why I'm here. I want to teach people how to make a plan for making medical decisions for their person as the disease gets worse, because that's what we expect to happen with dementia, with all the diseases that cause dementia. That's why I'm here. I just want to say a little disclaimer. So this isn't medical or legal advice. If you want to apply this to your unique situation, you should always consult with an expert. This is just general information and knowledge for you. So the main things that I want to cover today and the goals that I have for this is that I want you to understand the importance of making a medical care plan. I want you to have an approach that you can take to create or to name your person's goals of care. This is a huge, huge thing. After the end of this talk, I want you to have a much clearer idea about what goals of care are. And I want you to kind of decide where your person is with or without them, depending on what their abilities are at this point. And then I want to inspire you to take action. You are 100% capable of feeling good when you go to bed at night about the decisions that you have to make for your person. All right, so there's 5 steps that you can take as someone's medical decision maker ahead of any big medical issue. So we're going to go through each of these, but know your role. Understand what the documents do and do not do. Step number 3 is have clear goals of care. Number 4 is that you need to know and own, meaning really understand your person's medical history. And then I want you to learn and I want you to make a plan. These are the 5 steps. We're going to talk about each of these. All right, so step number 1, know your role. I know as caregivers, you all wear many hats. You all have many jobs that you have to do. Your chauffeur, you're a hairdresser, you're a cook, you're a cleaner, you are, day-to-day caregiver, you're managing behaviors, you're doing all kinds of things, and you're being pulled in lots of directions. And I know that being the medical decision maker is just one part of your job. I think it's a really important part of your job because everybody living with dementia is highly likely to come to the emergency department at some point, highly likely to need to be hospitalized. And I want you all to feel good about the decisions that you have to make when you're put into that position. You are all 100% capable of learning what you need to know ahead of time to be able to make confident decisions. There is one main rule that you need to follow as someone's medical decision maker. And this is what I say, like when you need to know and own your role, this is what I mean. If you follow this one rule, you will always be like on the right track. So that rule is that you speak for your person like they would speak for themselves. Remember that. But remember that your person, if they had a healthy brain, would be capable of learning. Okay. So they would be able to take in all the information that you're taking in. They would be able to, have their own opinion about that and make their own choices. So we always know that our person would be capable, if they had a healthy brain, of learning, just like you are. So speak as they would speak if they could learn like you have. Make the decision that they would make. That's the number one rule. That's what you need to do. Every time you make a choice, no matter if it's medical or any other care choice, you do that for them. All right. So, and then I just want to say that there is some mindset work that you need to do as medical decision maker. And the main thing is that I just want you to always have a thirst, like you always want to go out and seek knowledge, right? You always are open and willing to learn. And one other big thing is that I often find that people are in a crisis and it's because they haven't anticipated a need. So say their person is, wondering, or they're getting really agitated and trying to leave the house. And so we know that there's this issue coming, this issue of maybe they're not safe, this issue of perhaps they can't even stay in the home anymore. You want to anticipate needs. So when you see something creeping up, I need you to go and get the resources that you need to solve this problem ahead of time. So that's why I think it's really important for you all to be open-minded and looking for knowledge and learning all the time as medical decision maker, as a caregiver. And the fact that you're here today watching this means that you do that. So congratulations. That's important. And I applaud you for being here because I know that you have a lot of things to be doing, but having a thirst for knowledge is only going to serve you in this journey. All right, step number 2, let's talk about what the documents do and do not do. So there are a lot of documents, and as part of being someone's medical decision maker, it is your job to go and gather them all. So all the pieces of paper that would direct you in how your person would want their healthcare to be. So let's talk a little bit first about medical power of attorney. So this is a document stating who your person wants to make medical decisions for them when they are no longer able to do so. There are different names of this document in different states. So healthcare agent, healthcare surrogate, I think those are the big ones. A proxy, healthcare proxy. And then the title doesn't really matter, but basically someone's designated someone else to make decisions for them when they are no longer able to. I'll tell you that sometimes it is challenging in the emergency department when we're just meeting someone for 10 minutes to know that they can't make their own medical decisions. So it's really important as the medical decision maker, especially if you're that person on paper, that we're aware that your person has dementia if you come into the emergency department, and that this paperwork is on file, and that dementia is listed in their medical history, because that helps me know that this person may seem like they're alert and oriented, meaning they can tell me who they are, where they are, what year it is, maybe even what month it is. But maybe 20 minutes from now, they can't remember who I am. They don't know like all the details about what happened to them and why they came into the emergency department. Having all this paperwork on file is important so that it keys in the people in the emergency department and the hospital that we need to get you involved. But these documents only give you the ability to make decisions for your person when they are no longer able to, when they're incapacitated. You should have your own medical power of attorney for someone to make decisions for you. And it only goes into effect when you can't make decisions for yourself. So, and then also when the person passes away, if you have financial power of attorney for them, that is no longer in effect after they pass away. So that's something that you should know about. Advanced directives, I'm going to talk a little bit more on the next slide, but when I say advanced directives, I'm talking a living will. That's the most common one. 5 wishes is a type of advanced directive. And then different states have different generic advanced directive forms that they use and have people fill out. So these forms help us know what someone would want if they're no longer able to speak for themselves. It's very important that you find them if your person has them and read them. So if there's language in there that you don't understand, there's something that's not clear, the earlier your person is in the disease, the more able you'll be able to have a conversation with them and try to clarify some of these things. The last thing I want to tell you about are medical orders. So these documents, they are orders signed by the medical care team, by a provider. So there are only really 2 of them, the do not resuscitate order, and then there's another type of order called the post. It's called different things in different states, but it comes from the post, which is from Oregon, and that stands for physician orders for life-sustaining treatment. So what these documents do is tell us what kind of medical treatment someone would or would not want. The biggest thing is CPR. And these are forms that you fill out, that you can fill out on your person's behalf if they're no longer able to do so. So what they do is tell us specific treatments your person does or does not want. And these forms transfer across healthcare facilities or wherever your person's living. So at home, they're an order that a paramedic would follow if they came to your house. In a living facility, the nurse is there, the tech's there, a paramedic if they came there. In the hospital, these forms also are followed. So they go along with the person. They don't include every form of treatment that someone could possibly receive. So they're another way that you can advocate for your person, and you should go look to see if your person has any of these forms, and know that you can fill out medical orders with their care team if they're not able to do so on their own. This is the only type of directive, essentially, that you can do on behalf of someone. So the power of attorney and advanced directives, somebody has to be able to make their own decisions in order to fill out those documents. The medical orders like DNR and POST are the only things that you can do for them as their medical decision maker. All right, I want to talk to you all a little bit about advanced directives and some limitations that I come across. I don't find these very helpful in the emergency department, one, because I hardly ever see them. I think that these days, now that we're able to upload documents into the computer, the medical records of people in the hospital, I think this has the power to change. And we should be able to put these documents more in people's records and be able to review them. But there's lots of issues with these. And I also find that people say that everything legally is covered and they know what to do in a medical situation because of these documents. And that's one big thing that these documents don't always do. They don't always tell us what to do. And that's a little bit of what I want to talk about here. So a huge thing about advanced directives, they oftentimes use vague language. And one of those things could be, that somebody has a terminal condition or an end stage condition. That may be apparent to you. But when someone rolls into the emergency department and they're really sick, I don't know if they have a terminal condition unless they have a cancer and it's documented on their record. I don't know that this condition that they're presenting with right now is end stage because they're really sick and we need to figure out, are they going to get better? Now, this is a generalization. There are situations in which it is pretty apparent that someone is not doing well, but the vague language issue is huge in advanced directives. Technically, being diagnosed with dementia is a terminal illness. We know that it contributes to people's end of life, and we know that we cannot reverse it. But somebody with a good quality of life that's early on in the earlier stages of dementia may want to have treatments that prolong their life. And this directive may kind of say, well, if they have a terminal illness, we shouldn't. So that is a big issue. These forms are often out of date. So people do these when they do a will or they do estate planning, like they're creating a trust or a will, and they'll fill out a living will or an advance directive, and it will be from, when they're in their 50s, 60s, maybe 70s, before they had a diagnosis of dementia. Remember, your person would be capable if they had a healthy brain of learning and changing their mind on things. So they would likely want to update their directive. But a huge issue is that they have to have the ability to make their own decisions in order to update their directive. You can't update it for them. So this is what I mean when I say competency and capacity. They have to have these things in order to do advanced directives and to update their old documents. A huge issue that I have with these is that they leave out care options, treatment options. So they'll commonly talk about whether or not someone wants to be on a ventilator or whether or not they want a feeding tube. Sometimes they'll talk about CPR, they'll say life prolonging treatment, but it's not specific. And that is a huge issue. So these days you can create a plan for how you're going to act to each thing that your person is at risk for medically. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about that later. The other big thing that I'll tell you is that the spirit of these directives, especially the living will, they tell us when to stop care. That's what the purpose of them is. It's, somebody gets into a horrible car accident or is really, really sick, and we do all this aggressive care. They're in the ICU, in the intensive care unit, and now it's not working. And now this directive tells us, okay, if I have a situation in which I have a terminal condition or an end stage condition, I'm not going to be able to live. Multiple physicians are saying it's very unlikely that I'll continue to live. I don't want to be on life support anymore. So these directives, they tell us when to stop care, but they don't always tell us when to not start care in the first place. And many times for people who are living with dementia, for those that value their quality of life over the length of their life, there is a point in which they would not want to have treatments anymore that prolong their life artificially. So, the medical team is prolonging their life. A lot of people with dementia have that value and care preference. And so these directives don't help us in that situation. They don't help us not start that care in the first place. So you cannot rely on these forms. They are a tool, but they are not covering you for everything. You really need to create your own plan. All right, that was a lot. Let's keep going. So the next thing that I want to talk about is that it's really important to have clear goals of care. And we're going to talk more about what this means. So the first thing really is that when we're talking about goals of care, we really have to figure out what quality of life means to your person. So your job as the medical decision maker is really two things when we're talking about goals of care. It's what does quality of life mean to your person, and how much do they value quality of life over the length of their life, either one. So when we talk about quality of life, it's a subjective thing. It's different for every single person. Everybody has a different thing that gives them quality of life. Lots of things that give them a good quality of life, and it changes as we age. As we get older, what makes us happy, what makes us feel like we have purpose and meaning and reason to get up in the morning, that's going to change over time. We all have a lot of things in common when we talk about quality of life. Spending time with family, friends, being able to have conversations with them, being able to have a good meal, being able to go outside. People talk about being able to take care of themselves, to make their own decisions, to be able to bathe themselves or dress themselves, even to be able to feed themselves. There's so many things that go into this, but it's important to know what matters to your person, what makes life worth living for your person. And the earlier you can do this, the better. Because I'll tell you, as your person goes through the journey with dementia, just like when you raise kids and you're around them all the time, and then someone else comes into your house and says, oh my gosh, look at your kids. They've grown a whole foot, or look at all the teeth that kid has now. Those things become normalized to you, and their progressive decline in quality of life will become normalized to you. And so it's important to identify this, to even write it down, so that as things change, you can go back and look at it and say, okay, they really said that these things were important to them, and let's make sure that our care decisions are reflecting that. So what does quality of life mean to your person? You have to figure that out with them or for them. And then how much do they value it? Is your person someone who values the length of their life, or like how long they're living, how many days they're on the earth, or do they care more about how they're living and what their quality of life is? And knowing this and understanding this is going to help you determine what their goals of care are. All right. So what are goals of care? Essentially, this is just when you roll into the emergency department and you're really sick, I want to do to you, I want to do for you and for your person what you want, what your values are, what your preferences are. I don't want to do things to you that you don't want. And I don't want to not do things that if you want a certain treatment, like I want to be able to do that for you. So it's basically like, how aggressive do you want your care to be, essentially? Like that's kind of how you can think about it. What are your values and preferences, and how aggressive do you want care to be? And I think that healthcare workers struggle in talking to people about this because, and I'll tell you, it's because we wait too long to do it. People wait too long to talk about goals of care. They wait until someone's really, really sick or has a poor prognosis. It's unlikely that this person is going to get better, or it's very obvious that their quality of life has been affected by this medical problem. We wait way too long. We should be talking about this as soon as someone's diagnosed with dementia, teaching about the different care options, and defining goals of care now and as we move forward. So let's talk about the 3 categories of goals of care, because I really want you, I think after this, I really think that you'll be able to kind of figure out what category your person is in right now. So there's 3 categories. 1 is full treatment, 2 is some but not all treatment, and 3 is treatment that is focused on comfort. We're going to talk about each of these things. So explaining full treatment. So people who are in the full treatment category, they have a really good quality of life. They want to continue to live, and they're okay with prolonging their life. Okay. Their goal is to continue to live. It's okay if they come into the hospital and they're really, really sick. They want to go to the ICU. They want to be on the ventilator. They want to have CPR. They want everything done because they're willing to sacrifice a little bit of quality of life. So if they get really sick and they live and they survive it, they know they may have worse quality of life, but they're okay with that because the way that they're living now is so good that it's worth the risk. It is really important for people that fall in this category for you to know whether or not they value length of life over quality of life, because there are some people who are always going to want every single medical treatment done until it fails. And that's fine as long as they understand what that means. They understand what being in the ICU is like and what that can look like. If they're choosing that decision from an informed place, from understanding, then that's okay. But if somebody's full treatment now, but there is a point at which they value their quality of life more, and if their quality of life gets worse, they don't want to continue to have their life prolonged, you're going to need to pay attention, because then they wouldn't be full treatment anymore. They would be some, but not all. So it's really important to know that about this group. This is the best time to plan. This is the best time to put in a medical care plan, because it's typically the time when you're least likely to have a medical crisis. Medical crises and emergencies happen all the time. They're unpredictable. I see it every day. People tell me, I didn't want to do this today. I didn't expect this to happen. Why is this taking so long? It's frustrating. But that's why it's important to plan. And this is the best time. People who are typically in the full treatment group with dementia are often in the earlier stages of dementia. All right, some but not all. So these folks have a very acceptable quality of life. They want to continue to live, and they may be okay with prolonging, like life-prolonging treatment. So when I say that, I mean that these are treatments that are keeping someone alive, and without them, they probably would die. They may not die, but they probably would. They may get worse. And usually people in this group would be okay with that type of treatment on kind of a trial basis. Often, I see that often. It's like, okay, let's try this intensive care for a little bit of time. Let's try being on the ventilator. Let's try being in the ICU with full support. But if it's not really working, then we may adjust our plan. But oftentimes these folks do not want to have CPR. And I talk a lot about CPR in my Facebook group. I've done videos on it before, and I've talked about it some on Instagram as well. And CPR is not what it looks like on television. So it's not as successful as people think. And as people develop more illnesses and they get to be over 70 years old, it's not as effective as people think. And so a lot of times people do not want to have CPR. And so people in the some but not all group oftentimes will have a do not resuscitate order form. And that is kind of the first treatment, if you will, that someone would take away as they're doing a medical care plan. So in the full treatment, you would not have a DNR. You would be what we call a full code, so no DNR. But in this group, most people, the first thing that would kind of drop them into this group would be that they would have a do not resuscitate order. And I'm happy to talk more about CPR. If anybody has any questions, I can talk about that more at the end of this. But folks in this group, they value their quality of life over the length of their life, 100%. And these folks have to have a medical care plan because we're talking about some but not all treatment. So which treatments do they want or do they not want? And that's why I teach medical care planning. I teach people to look at all the conditions that they're at risk for and then learn about those treatment options so they can make a plan, not saying I never want to be intubated, not saying I never want intensive care, but if these medical issues happen to me, I'm okay with being on a ventilator. But if this medical issue happens to me, I'm not okay with it. Like, think about pneumonia, okay? So someone has pneumonia, they may want to be on a ventilator for a little bit, and that's okay. You can try to go on the ventilator and see if you come off of it. But if that same person has underlying congestive heart failure, so their heart doesn't work like it should anymore, and the reason why they may need to go on the ventilator is because their heart has failed and now their lungs are failing, they may say, in that case, I don't want to go on the ventilator. And if your person can't do that for themselves anymore, can't make those decisions, it's your job to do that on their behalf, and you 100% can. So the same treatment being on a ventilator in two different medical situations, we would want it and then we wouldn't want it. So that's the problem I have with just making these blanket statements on advanced directive forms. And sometimes it's appropriate, especially when someone gets more to the end of life. But in this group, it's really important to actually think through each thing that your person's at risk for. So people who are in the some but not all group are going to be more in the early to middle stages of dementia most often. And then comfort. So it's what it sounds like. These folks have a quality of life that's not acceptable to them. It's not ideal. They don't want their life to be prolonged anymore, artificially anymore. Like, they don't want treatments that will continue to prolong their life. Every treatment that we do for someone who's in this group should be focused on the intention of it, should be comfort. It should not be to prolong life. So these folks should have a do not resuscitate order. And the other thing I was talking about, the pulse, they should consider having that as well if their state has that program, and you can look at that form for them. They absolutely value quality of life over the length of their life. It's important to update your medical care plan for people because a lot of people will fall into this comfort category at some point. And if you're not constantly checking in, remember what I said about as someone's quality of life worsens, it will become more normalized to you. And so it's important to continue to update and check back in with your plan to make sure that our treatment is going in line with the person's goals. And at some point, the person's goals may be comfort. And this is going to be for people who are in the middle to late stages of dementia, where you're oftentimes going to see people choosing hospice in this group. And I just want to say something about hospice. Just because someone is on hospice does not mean that they don't get treatment, does not mean that they do not receive care. It's just like what I said, is that all of the treatment that we do to them should be focused on comfort. So if they're getting antibiotics, it's because they're uncomfortable because of an infection. If they're getting admitted to the hospital, it's because their pain cannot be controlled at home. It's because they fell and broke their hip. they're coming to the emergency department because they fell and they have a cut that needs stitches. It doesn't mean that we just leave them alone and don't take care of them. Everything that we do should be focused on comfort. All right, this concept, tipping points, is something that I want you guys to remember. This is what would bring somebody from full treatment to some but not all, and then to comfort care. So it's those quality of life things for your person that would tip them into the next category. And it's very important that you do this early on. You have conversations with them about what can you live with, what can you live without, what can you not live without, what's most important to you. And then you kind of sit down and think, when would they want to have comfort care? So just giving you some examples. I mean, most people are full treatment. I'm full treatment. But somebody who has dementia may be full treatment if they're still living independently, if they're still able to drive, if they're still able to travel and see family. Maybe even they're living in a facility with minimal help. You know, they're still able to walk. Maybe they're cooking a little bit, or they're needing help with cooking. Somebody may go into the some but not all group. They could do that immediately when they're diagnosed with dementia. They could decide that they don't want to have CPR, and then they would be in the some but not all group. But a lot of folks in that group would be, you know, people who are needing more help, people who, you know, are having issues dressing themselves. You know, they're maybe more forgetful about their family, or they're, you know, they're more confused about where they are and what's going on the day to day. And then comfort care those are typically people who are, you know, not usually eating anymore. They maybe don't recognize their family at all anymore. And, you know, people can still have good quality of life, even if they're not recognizing their family. Like, some folks are still really happy and still seem to enjoy, like, you can tell that they enjoy the camaraderie with others and like being around other people. But it's all dependent upon the person. You know, I've had people that have said, my mom with dementia told us that when she couldn't read a book anymore and she didn't recognize us anymore, that she didn't want any treatments that would prolong her life. And so that would make her comfort care. So it's different for every person, but it's incredibly important to identify this early on. Okay, step number 4 is I want you to know and own their past medical history. So this is really important, and this requires you to do a little bit of investigation and to take some action. So, time to take action. So you have to gather all of your person's past medical history. And when I'm talking about this, I'm talking about all their medications, their allergies, what surgeries they've had, every single time they've been hospitalized in the past, what things have been found on imaging studies that they've seen, like an aneurysm, a previous dissection, which I'm trying not to get too in the weeds about medical terms, but it's really important that you have a full picture overview of your person's health, because you cannot make a medical care plan without understanding where you're starting from. Okay, you have to understand where you're coming from in order to figure out what your person is at risk for, which you are all capable of doing. But if you don't have their complete medical history, you won't be able to do this. You won't be able to create a medical care plan. You also won't be able to talk about goals of care, define goals of care as well when you're talking to medical staff. So doing this will help you communicate better if you come into the emergency department or the hospital. You know, if you know your person has congestive heart failure and they've been admitted to the hospital 3 or 4 times for it, you know, that's different than somebody who's never been admitted to the hospital for that problem before. So I want you to go and make a list of all the things that your person has been treated for in the past, is currently being treated for. The medications that they're on can be a really big investigative clue. So every medication that your person is taking, just as an aside, every medication we all take should have a purpose, should have an intention, and you should know what it is. Like, everybody should know what medications they take and know why they're taking them. And you need to do this for your person, because if you don't know why your person's taking a medication, they may not need that medication. And as we get older and as our functioning changes and our eating and drinking changes, some medications can be harmful. So it's really important that this is kind of a separate note for you. Medications, something that you really, really, really need to be on top of. But medications can help you know what medical problems your person has. Also, if you look at a recent discharge summary, if your person was in the hospital. The other thing is you can just look at a note from your their primary care doctor's office. And if your person sees specialists, oftentimes they have more detailed notes about their different problems. So if they go to see a heart doctor or a lung doctor or a GI doctor or a neurologist, you should look at all of their notes. And now we have laws that say that you should have access to all of your medical records. So it's much easier to get access to these things. You might need to get the password to your person's stuff, or just log on to their account. But you have to do this or you cannot create a medical care plan. It's essential. All right. Now, step number 5, learn and make your plan. So there are a few things that you have to do to make your medical care plan. We've already talked about several of them. Goals of care are really important. Gathering all that medical history and really understanding it is important. But you're going to have to educate yourself. And this is something that's a little bit time consuming, but you put in this work one time, and not only will this help you, will help your person because you'll be able to better understand what's happening to them as it happens, but it will also help you for your own life and potentially other people that you could advocate for. So there's 2 different categories of things that you need to focus on. One is I want you to read about your person's medical problems. Read about them. What are they? What do they look like? Can they get worse? What does it look like when they get worse? Okay. What do they put you at risk for? And then so just think for an example, if your person has high blood pressure, high cholesterol, diabetes, is maybe overweight, any combination of those things, they're going to be at risk for heart disease, like blockages in their coronary arteries, which is what predisposes you to having a heart attack, and also stroke, also kidney disease. These are very, very common things that a lot of Americans have. And you should know that your person has those problems, what they look like, what they put them at risk for, so that you can do the next part, which is the learn. But I want you to learn about your person's medical issues and the medical issues that are common with dementia. So dehydration, falls, the different types of infection. Learn about these things, read about them. And then I want you to go and figure out how these things are treated when they become worse. How are they treated? And do those treatments go along with your person's goals of care now? And then what about in the future? Are there times when your person wouldn't want those treatments? And you can do this work with your person's doctor. I think that it's important for you to kind of do some of the work on your own and then bring your kind of plan to the doctor and have them go over it with you. But doctors these days they have a lack of time for long visits. And so the more organized you are and the more pointed your questions are, the more narrowed down and focused you are, the more you'll get out of interaction with the doctor. Okay, so, and then basically what you do to make your medical care plan is you list out all the things that your person's at risk for, and then you list out the way that they're treated and what you're going to do now and what you're going to do going forward in the future. And that's the gist of a medical care plan. But this is all the stuff that you have to do before you create that plan. So 5 steps that you take as medical decision maker. You know your role. Remember the rule that you must always follow. You understand what the documents do and don't do. We're not going to rely on advanced directives. We are going to use them as a tool. We're going to know what they say. And we're going to know that we're going to step up and make decisions that are best for our person based on what their goals of care are now and going forward in the future. And remember that you can use those medical orders I was talking about, when and if your person's goals of care go along with comfort typically. And then remember the DNR, you can use that earlier. And then you need to know and own your person's past medical history, step number 4. And then you go and learn and you make your plan. And then you review it with your person's doctor. And then if you want help from me, I can help you. If you want to work with me further in the future, I do Zoom calls. I can talk to you about your person's medical care plan, what they're at risk for, what goals of care, what you're thinking about goals of care. You can bounce ideas off of me. I also talk to people about what just happened in a hospital. If they just want to talk to a doctor about what exactly just happened, what does that mean? How can that change things going forward? How does that change goals of care, etc.? And then I also am developing an online course. I just need to put the finishing touches on it. But it will teach you all the medical complications of dementia, how we treat those things, the most common medical complications of aging, and of common chronic diseases like high blood pressure, high cholesterol, diabetes, like what stroke and heart attack look like, and how we work those things up in the emergency department, how they're treated. So it will basically give you everything that you need to know from a general standpoint to make a medical care plan. And then I have those things cost money, and you can email me or go to my website if you want more information. My email is brittanylamb@blammd.com. And then I also have a Facebook community where I help people navigate medical decision making. So I encourage you to come join that. It's called Medical Decision Making for Your Loved One with Dementia. I have a blog where I go more into detail about a lot of these things. And you can get on my email list if you want that blog to come to your email. And then I'm on Instagram at blam.md. All right, so that's all I have. I want to say thank you for being here. I think that there are a million things you could be doing right now. And the fact that you're here means that you're a good advocate and that you want to do what's best for your person. So I applaud you and I thank you. If this presentation, if my talk helped you, please go and tell people I exist. And then email me if you have any questions or you want to give me feedback about this, if there's anything that you think I need to include. So that is all I've got. So let me know what questions, if there's any questions we have.
Thank you so much, Brittany. This was
Yeah.
very informative. There's one question thus far, and if you have any questions for Dr. Lamb, please put them in the chat now. This is from Melissa LaRoche. She said, hi, I recently messaged Dr. Lamb about my dad. We're in Canada, but are hitting some roadblocks to care, mainly being denied for supportive houses as he is safe enough on his own. How can I help when the system stops us from being proactive?
Yeah, I mean, so I'm not familiar with the Canadian system. And so in the US, I would direct people to go to their local area agency on aging and to talk with them about what resources are available locally. I have no idea what the equivalent is to that in Canada, but I don't know what to tell you, honestly. I mean, the system is so broken, and there's going to need to be a lot more work worldwide about helping people with dementia, because more and more people are going to have this. We have more and more people aging. And so, I don't really have a good answer. I think that other than trying to figure out what you have locally, if there's volunteer organizations, if there's, any groups that could potentially help, but I hear you. It's a huge problem.
And Melissa also added on to what Dr. Lamb said too, which was true, the area agency on aging and disability, and also any local senior organizations may have information. I know here, like she said, I don't know about how it is in Canada, but here, a lot of the resources, especially when it deals with housing and stuff, is based on income. So certain criterias, unfortunately, that are being looked at when it comes down to some forms of housing. Of course, here we have things like assisted living and independent living, where it's some out of pocket cost. But like I said, it depends on how things are where you are. Also, there may be other options. So maybe look at some senior organizations and see what resources they have that can help you, even helping you in your home as well.
I would say too, like a couple more things to think about. And they may not apply to you in your situation, but if your person's ever in a situation where they're unsafe and they're not able to take care of themselves, they're a danger to themselves, to others, because they have lost the ability to make decisions and they're doing things that are potentially dangerous. That is a reason to come to the emergency department. And, I see it all the time in the ER that people come in because of behavior issues or because of just safety concerns. And obviously we can't fix that in the emergency department, but we are physically a place where people can come and like, stay for a while. Obviously we have other patients, we have emergency things that are coming in. And so is that going to be our highest priority patient? Potentially not, like just being honest, but it is a safe place that you can come. And I'm sure that holds true. That's going to hold true for sure in Canada. So if you're ever in dire straits, you can call 911 and have your patient or your person taken to the ER for evaluation. And sometimes we have social workers there that can help find housing arrangements. Sometimes we have to put people in the hospital for a temporary stay while we figure out what's safe for them. And in the US, we also have adult protective services. So we have, when we're concerned about an aging person not able to care for themselves, we have a government organization that county from a county standpoint that gets involved and investigates, and sometimes we have to get guardianship over folks who are not making, safe care decisions for themselves. So I think I'll look for your message because that sounds familiar, and I'm sorry, I got a lot of messages and I think I may have missed yours. Maybe I can help a little bit more with your specific situation. So I'll message you back. Let me do that.
While someone else may have a question, but you were speaking about the advanced directive. So if a person, how does it work when a person goes to a hospital? Should they be bringing the paperwork with them? Or if they reside in a city where their doctor is, if it's in that network, are you able to pull it up in the system, or how does it work? Do they need to be taking the information to the emergency room when they go, or is some of this stuff in the system if they're within that network or something?
So here's the thing. If someone calls an ambulance and they go from a living facility to a hospital or from a home to a hospital, these days you're typically going to be brought to the same hospital. But there are some hospitals that are close to each other and they don't talk to each other. And so I would recommend that you always bring, I sometimes will talk about a to-go kit. And that's one of the things that I talk about when you're planning ahead for a medical emergency. I think that people should just have copies of these directives and should send them with their person. So if your person's living at home, or if they're in a facility, they send us like a packet of information. So it gives us their name, their birthday, all their medical problems. We're supposed to get all the medications that they take. I commonly get like a do not resuscitate order. They'll send that, but they don't always send their advanced directives. They may not have them on file, but yeah, I think that sending them is never going to hurt. But I do also think that part of what you can do ahead of time is making sure that the hospital where your person most likely is going to go and usually goes has this stuff on file, because you can get it on there and then you don't necessarily have to keep updating it or bring it in every time. However, if there's a medical emergency happening, it's much easier for me to read a piece of paper, a physical piece of paper, than it is for me to run over to the computer, log into the computer, look through all the files in there and try to find their advanced directive. I mean, let's just be honest. So yeah, I think having it is helpful.
Does anybody have any more questions about advanced directives, making medical decisions on your loved one's behalf? Who may be suffering from dementia? Any questions? Because she's given us a whole lot of great information.
I'm sorry. I'm not sorry, but like I know I talked a lot. It's just that I really want people to know these things, and they take a little bit of explanation. So if people have, if you're watching this on the replay and you have questions, like don't feel shy. You can always send me a message on Facebook. And then I think if you comment below this when you're watching the replay, maybe just tag me in it. And so it's my name, Brittany Lamb. You can just tag me on Facebook, and then that way I'll realize that someone's asked a question.
Okay.
Yeah.
I see somebody else came in, but All right, we're going to get ready to close this out. Again, I want to thank you, Dr. Lamb, for coming on and giving us the 5 steps to take as a medical decision maker um, for someone who's suffering from dementia, because that's very important. Um, and this all goes back to getting everything in order when someone has dementia. And oftentimes people are thrown into the caregiving role, and they don't think about this. They're trying to get over the fact that, oh, I'm thrown into this role, now what I do. But that's what we're here for. That's the purpose of this Stepping into the World of Dementia tour. We not only want you to um, learn the importance of stepping into the world of someone who has dementia, but also we want to equip you with the tools that you need to be able to provide the very best care for your loved one, and make sure that they have a good quality of life while they have dementia. So that's the purpose of this tour. Um, this is just week 2. And we want you right now, everybody on here, to please share this video with other friends that you have on Facebook, all of your network, because this is great information. All the information that is being presented during the tour is available to help not only caregivers, dementia caregivers, but anybody else who wants to learn more about dementia, various resources out there. Because let me tell you, you either gonna have dementia one day or you're gonna know somebody who has dementia one day. So it's good to learn this information, equip yourself with the tools, so when it hits your front door, you know, okay, I remember in the tour they were talking about this and that. And so, oh, okay, so this can help me, or I can go to this person and this person can help me. So that's the purpose of this tour. This is only week 2. Next week, we have week 3. And week 3 is going to be fantastic. This week was great, but next week is going to be fantastic as well. You do not want to miss 1 week of the tour, because each week is going to be different speakers talking about various topics that will be beneficial to you. Next week, we're going to be delving into activities. It's going to be very fun. So if you're a caregiver taking care of a loved one who suffers from dementia, you definitely want to attend next week when we're talking about activities. And this information will be on Facebook and Instagram. If you're not already following royaltyseniorserviceconsulting.com, you can follow us and learn about the different upcoming events, the different on the various weeks that we have. Again, if you want additional information and additional help on making medical decisions for your loved ones who suffer from dementia, please do not hesitate. Contact Dr. Brittany Lamb. She is very passionate about helping caregivers as well. And just reach out to her. Thank you again. Please share this video and with other people. Also, go to Royalty Senior Service Consulting if you missed any of the weeks, and you can watch the replay of the videos. And again, share the videos with others. And if you have questions, you can still put questions in the comment section or contact one of us, and we will get back in contact with you. Be encouraged. You can do this. Have a great rest of the day. Thank you for joining us.
Bye.
Bye.